Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 235 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we react to RosesFC loss to AFC Toronto and CF Montreal's draw versus Atlanta United. We'll also answer all your questions from the chat, so make sure to write in your questions, whatever you may have for us tonight. As always, I'm joined by my man, Elias Grigoriadis. How are we doing, Elias?
Yesterday was not so great, but today was better. Barcelona won 5-0. So we're back.
Oh, yeah.
We're back, Barcelona. So
but
back.
Of course, everybody focuses on the miss. When to make it 5-0, I saw a clip somewhere that apparently
I don't know what you're talking about.
Everybody remembers
Barcelona had exactly 5 shots on target, and all 5 went in. Nothing else. Good evening, Patrick.
Denial. Anyways, before
get the misses out now. Get the misses out now. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Hey, listen. It's been a hot one this weekend. It's been a hot one. Look, let me tell you an anecdote. Okay, so yesterday, I had a plan to go to both games, the RosesFC and CF Montreal. And before I left home, my wife told me about some friends that were in town, and maybe they wanted to like hang out. And hello, Robbie. Hello, Patrick. Thank you for joining us tonight. Don't forget that you guys can ask any questions you may have on the chat, and we'll answer them here. But just to finish my anecdote, so I'm leaving the house, and my wife tells me, "Oh, we have some friends from out of town." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I tell her, we'll hang out after the game. We'll hang out after. I have no idea what I was getting myself into. When I got out of Stade Saputo late last night, to be clear, very late last night, I was gutted. I was exhausted. RosesFC game was so hot, like was very, very hot. That everybody felt it. Wasn't just me. Anybody in Montreal felt what the heat was, and then going to CF the CF Montreal Stade Saputo was a whole nother ordeal. So, anyways, I'm sure we all feel the same way. I'm sweating right now just being in this room. It's a hot day.
Oh yeah, we've got a special guest on the pod tonight. It's my fan. So if you hear it whirring in the background, that's who says hi. But yeah, holy! I had to go to church today for memorial, and oh my god, I got outside, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. It's musty out there, man.
Shout out to Elias's only fan, Robbie. I'll take it soft. Yes, I am. That's very soft. And believe it or not, guys, I mentioned in this pod before. I've grown up in Miami, and I'm used to this heat. But yesterday it hit me. It hit me hard. It's hard, man. And I'm getting old. I'm getting older. I'm not getting old. I'm getting older. And these things are hitting harder. So, yes, it's a very soft complaint. First world pains, right? But it is what it is. Guys, before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you listen to the show and like what you hear, /C, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe to all of our social media platforms for daily updates. You can follow Elias or I in X, Blue Sky, Instagram, anywhere. And yeah, so all right, let's get right into it. We're gonna flip the script a little bit, Elias. Today, usually we talk about CF Montreal, then we do RosesFC. Tonight, we're starting with RosesFC because it was a game. So, but before before we break down the game, there was a little bit of an announcement. There was an announcement during the week for the Montreal Roses, where if you can put up the graphic there. So Montreal Roses proudly announced the signing of 27-year-old international midfielder and winger Cherim Kang, a key player for the South Korean national team. I'm sorry, the reason why I struggled to say the name, Elias, is because yesterday in the post-game conference, we actually took some time to ask Coach Robert, how do you pronounce her name? And we all kind of went back and forth. Even Robert was not too clear yet as to how they want to properly pronounce it. So it's a little bit hard for us, but with time we'll get used to it. How important is this signing for RosesFC, especially after seeing, and we'll get into the game for tomorrow, but just seeing how the results have been. They're second in the table. They have had up and down performances the past few weeks. We've had 15 games to see RosesFC play. How important is this? Maybe a veteran winger, midfielder to have in the squad.
We're going to talk. We're going to get to why It's so important in a little bit, but yes, absolutely. Getting some depth in the midfield, getting a player who's versatile, who can play in a number of different roles, especially going forward, who's creative, who's technically sound, I think is super important. You need not just for competitions, but not for the competition's sake, but you saw what, again, we're going to talk about what happened with Claire Monniard, where she got in, she made an impact, and all of a sudden she got the starting spot, and you now not only have a little bit of depth because you have people that you know are reliable, but you have competition in that role for the player next to Latifa Abdul. Someone like Kang who comes in and who can play and who can, again, be that spark that may be needed in certain situations, absolutely it's helpful. I think that, again, right, you're in second place, but you are not without your faults. You are not without stuff you need to work on. And we're going to break down a whole lot of them tonight.
Yeah,
but I do really think that this is such an early showing of them actively looking for reinforcements, and international, like proven international reinforcements, is such a good thing because it shows that they're not being complacent. They're not going to be like, you know what? Yeah, there's some problems, but we're in second place. So no. There's okay. These are certain problems. Let's fix it immediately. And I love the move. I can't wait to see her play, and I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait to see how she fits in this group, because I think this is the right intention, right? Where you're pragmatic about anything you see that you may consider an issue.
Yeah, and I just similar to what you're saying, right after last night's game, especially, it's when you start seeing like, okay, we need these kind of players. That RosesFC needs these kind of players where they might be impact. We don't know if they're what their intentions are, how often to play her throughout the season, but at least what's clear is that she's here until the end of the season. The reason she wasn't even on the bench or starting yesterday, from my understanding, is that she's actually is in game shape. She's in very well game shape, ready to play, but she still needs some time to adapt to to settle in and get to know the English or French a little bit. And welcome, Tate. Shout out to Tate. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. But yeah, that's my understanding. She just needs a little bit of adaptation, and hopefully we see her in the next few weeks. Hopefully next week. Just a little thing here. Pat says, "Love the heat. Winter sucks." You know what? You know what, Pat? I'll get right back to you. I hate the heat. Not the Miami Heat. I hate the heat in general because
I hate the heat too. Right?
Shut up. I hate the heat, but because you start sweating. Oh man, I'm gonna get so deep into this. You get so muggy. It gets you tired in the winter. You get cold, and you just do one of these, Elias. And
exactly.
You're good.
It's so much easier to warm yourself up than it is to cool yourself down. It's better. It's just everything's better. I mean, yeah. The only thing that sucks about the winter is slush on the streets. That's
whatever. Anyways, a guy from Miami. I hate the heat. Not the Miami Heat. I hate the heat. So anyway, so yes, I really do I hope that Kang is gonna make a hopefully an instant impact, and we'll get right into the game because we do want to kind of connect the two, right? Connect that signing. And more than anything, I did want to mention this. I also do think that Roses made their intentions very clear this week, saying we need depth. We need some kind of rotation because we don't have it right now, or there's either they don't find that what they have in the bench right now is competitive enough to maybe help the team or whatever it is, they're making moves, right? And they realized it quickly. And it's good to realize that now because you're midway through the season. All right, so let's go ahead. So RosesFC lost last night against AFC Toronto 1-2 in Stade Boreal. We have the starting lineup from the game. We had at goalie Karpenko, Lucy Capadonna, Haley Whitaker, Stephanie Hill, Schenk on the left. She started on the left back. Claire Monniard, Ali Hess, Charlotte Bibot in the midfield. And then you had Megan Sauvé, Latifa Abdou in the top, and Tanya Boychuk. And yeah, so that was the lineup for last night. And we're going to get started right away from the defense and the goalkeeping, right? I think we have a lot to talk about in this particular game because it did feel like Toronto did make it a point to high press them. And it's almost like, again, we've talked about in this podcast repeatedly, right? You keep playing these teams are going to catch up, and they're going to catch up quickly to see what your vulnerabilities are and how they get you uncomfortable. And we've also talked about here how Roses seems to really, really struggle against the high press, especially the Karpenko. And I think we saw it a lot last night. Toronto very quick. And it was, before we even, just to give you guys a little bit of context, I know you keep talking about the heat and hot. Yesterday it was scorching. We were in the press box, and we were a little bit better, I guess, because we obviously had a roof on top of us, but also we had wind, which wasn't too bad. But on the field, with the kind of field that Stade Boreal has, it almost triples the heat that what you're feeling on the bench. I mean, some lady even at least one person that I saw, I don't know if there were several, but some fan like actually passed out, and they needed paramedics. That's how hot it was. But it was a hot one, and you could tell that the players were feeling it. I mean, I remember I saw the 8th minute. I think it was the 8th or 9th minute, and you could just see Latifa Abdul, specifically her, because that's who I saw, but that had already her hands on her knees. And I'm not criticizing it. It was hot for anyone. So, but at this point, it also becomes something about game management, right? Like, how did the coaches prepare? Like, how are they saving their energy? How are they trying to maintain themselves? And both teams are going through it. They repeated this at the press conference. Anyways, so what do you think of the let's start with the goalkeeping, okay? Because I know I said defense and goalkeeping, but what did you think of Campagno's performance last night?
I can't really fault her for either of the goals. I mean,
really?
Yeah, a goalie never looks good when they get beat from halfway, but it's not one of those where like, you should focus. It really did kind of come out of nowhere. And I mean, the first goal, it's a 1v1, right? It's there. I definitely don't fault her. The second one, yeah, did she get caught maybe a little bit? But honestly, goals like that, I think you just have to goals from halfway in general, unless the goalie's literally on the line and then they go and they miss it, like where you look genuinely dumb. Yeah. That's one thing. But Karpenko was just caught out. I think that happens. It's more the quality of the player actually sending that than it is the goalie looking bad. But yeah, I think honestly there you kind of just gotta tip your cap and go, damn, that was really impressive. Yeah. It was perfect, right? That the margin for error when you try and score from there is so high. So yeah, the fact that you were able to place it perfectly, that's the chapeau, Mm-hmm. It's more the distribution for the back line. Schenk and Whitaker out wide do provide a lot of width, but and we saw it on the other side of the coin too, right? Toronto was also very susceptible to the high press, and both teams pressing yesterday were so effective because it was a very physically draining day. And Montreal's back line could not find Elias or Shuttle people to save their lives, at least not in space. And when you can't find your midfielders, you're just not going to build out from the back. The only times they really did find any success building out from the back was when they either broke lines immediately and they found some space with the forwards, or when they recycled the ball out wide, and then you saw Schenk and Boychuk or Whitaker and Abdu kind of link up, and Sauvé got involved too. But yeah, I really think that you have center backs like Lucy Capitana and Stephanie Hill that are so solid. Isolating them and kind of stopping them from being able to really direct traffic is such a difficult thing to do, and Toronto did it well. You got to give credit where credit is due. Toronto's press was extremely organized, especially after they went up, especially in the second half when they kind of shut everything down. In the first half, the game was much more open, but in the second half, they really did just lock the entire game down. And I'll talk a bit more about that when we speak about the forwards, because it seems to be a pattern. But on the defensive side of the ball, they did a really good job. I mean, I get it. In the second half, Toronto didn't have a whole lot to do. They just had to kind of hold their lead and fight for that. But in the first half, when it was again a very open game, Toronto didn't really have anything, right? It was a goal from midfield. I'm never going to blame a center back from scoring for somebody scoring from that far out. And the first goal was on the counter. It was a very quick counter. It was a quick ball. Haley Whitaker's kind of like the one player in that passing lane, and could she have done better? Maybe, but like she's got like 4 different passing lanes to worry about, so I'm not putting too much blame on her in that respect. It definitely wasn't her best game. We kind of talked about that yesterday off camera, but yeah. I'm not going to fault her for that. It's just you get caught out, shit happens. Yeah. But overall, this is more just a really great example of how Toronto can shut other teams down rather than like anything really problematic about the defense. But yeah, I mean, it was tough to watch.
It was very tough to watch because, yes, as you mentioned, I was very critical yesterday. I spoke to you about, I was like, hey, I'm really not impressed with Hailey Whitaker's game last night. I mentioned it in this podcast a few weeks in a row. I think I've said I'm fairly surprised how the decline that we've seen in Hailey Whitaker's performances since the beginning of the season. Because at the beginning of the season, now it felt like she was, the one impacting the game and really, shoring up that right line, right side with Tanya Boychuk. They really seem to be connected, and then it just felt like she's really taking a back seat. And then yesterday, she just seemed like she was a step slower than everybody. As far as the goalie goes, you're right. I mean, there's definitely moments that you're like, it happens. But Coach Robert Rositoyu said something very interesting yesterday. He said these mistakes have been happening too often now, and this is something we need to attack. We need to address. And I agree. I agree that I think it's becoming an issue now. It's no longer a one-off. Because like last year we saw with CF Montreal, I think it was against Sirois that I believe it was FC Cincinnati, one of their games or something, where it was just an astounding goal just because he was off the line. It happens to the best goalies. We've seen it over and over again. But these are constant mistakes that are happening. It's becoming too frequent. So at what point do you think it's a time for a switch? Because yesterday, Gabrielle Lambert was finally back on the bench. She's been out for a little bit. I don't know the extent of her injury, but it's good to see her back on the bench. At what time do you think maybe it's point to like, hey, maybe she needs a break, and maybe we can give Lambert just a trial, see what's going on.
Honestly, the second that she's ready to play a full 90, that you think you're confident your keeper can play a full game, I think you just give her a chance because again, provide a little bit of competition, but B, it also let Anna Karpenko kind of mentally reset a little bit. Because the beginning of the season, she has not changed her style of play at all this season. She has a goalkeeping philosophy and style about her, and she stays true to it. And at the beginning of the season, it worked really well. It was definitely, kind of scary. I love that. I love it when a goalkeeper takes chances and has confidence in themselves. But you're right. Over the last couple weeks, it's gone more and more dubious. And I think that, if you let a goalie kind of just relax and reset and kind of just, come back to maybe a game in the future with a clean slate, I think maybe that would help, right? But I'm not a goalkeeper. I've never been a goalkeeper. I would not be. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about goalkeeper psychology. That's a whole other doctorate in and of itself. So I think that, but I think that generally that would help. Just letting, because it does seem like she's carrying a lot of weight on her shoulders right now, and I think that every single time that she's on the ball, she's like, I you can't make this mistake again because it'll cost a goal or a game or points like it has in the past. So yeah, having we've seen her play. Having a very confident and capable backup option is always good, and that'll let your. I think it's clear that Robert Rosatoyu considers Anna Karpenko the starter, and sometimes if your starter needs a break, you can do that confidently. I think there's no problem with that. So the second that you feel like you can give her 90 minutes, I feel like Anna Karpenko deserves to get a break and just continue working.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time for a change. I think as soon as Gabriel Lambert is ready to get back in, like you said, 90 minutes, it's time to move on. And just to see something else, because these late well, this one wasn't a late game score, but these scores that are a little bit questionable, whether it's a goalie or it's just an amazing shot, because it happens. And Montreal, RosesFC has had their fair share of like good, nice goals, also because maybe the goalie was badly placed or whatever. But just when we talk a little bit about context, Tate actually asked something. How was the attendance for yesterday's Heat Fest?
Good.
You know what? I'll tell you this. Okay, I think that RosesFC, since the beginning of the season, at least the games I've been to Stade Boréal, have done a fantastic job of engaging with their with the crowd, with the fans, right? And yesterday was Pride Day, and they were celebrating it, and they actually had a big festival with I believe it was drag queens or whatnot. I don't know. It was a fantastic show, and people are engaged and people are there. It was hot, and you could tell people were hot. but they stayed the full 90 minutes because of how engaging it is and how fun it is. And once in a while you'll hear like that young kid yell out, "Ale Roses," and it's really, really encouraging to see that. And they've done a very, very good job of that. The music was freaking fire. They were putting some jams that was had my head bobbing, and it was just to give you guys, how's the crowd? I mean, I'm not gonna say it was a sold out show, but people are still showing up, and I really like what how much effort some of the fans that go every game are actually making it to create like those chants. I'm sure you've heard it, Elias. I don't know if you've heard it on TV or when you were at the game.
I watched the game on TV on Saturday, and yeah, honestly, the crowd still sounds really good.
Yeah.
But honestly, I still think it's probably it's definitely one of the better NSL crowds, and I'm proud of that because again, Montreal. I still find Montreal has pound for pound, one of the best sports cities in North America. And when they get behind someone and they get behind a team, they show up. So yeah, I mean, I was happy to see that the crowd, at least from TV, the crowd looked fairly full and fairly engaged, which is always, especially when it's Montreal Toronto. You don't want a dead crowd. You don't want empty seats and just dead atmosphere. You want some passion, right? First versus second, Montreal Toronto. There's always going to be some heat there, and I love it.
Yeah, and it was very hot, very nice, but yeah, that's it. So I want to give a quick shout out to the guy that I always hear I think it's a guy, I'm sure, the person that does the shouting whenever the RosesFC are doing a free kick, a corner kick, or a free kick. The person yells out, "Indigo!" It's fantastic, and the whole crowd is like, "Indigo!" I love it every time I go. But anyways, we're gonna move on to midfield where we had Elias and we had Charles Bibot. What do you think of this combination?
Look, I mean, we know what to expect with this pairing. We know what they're good at. We know what they're less good at. My biggest problem was the fact that they could not get on the ball in space when building, and I genuinely think that, right? And we're not going to talk about the need for a 10. We're not going to talk about the need for creative midfielder because it's a broken record and we've spoken about it a bajillion times. But the pairing have gotten, the positive I find is that the pairing have gotten a lot more in sync and they are complementing each other better. But when you're playing teams like this that press you so high up the field and then comparatively in the second half lock it down so tightly and they're so well organized, they have trouble picking that apart. And they have trouble really directing traffic in that respect because of the fact that, they're two and there's a lot of ground to cover. So it does limit their range. We did find it, especially in the first half. Again, the first half was much better than the second half for me. Even if they did concede 2 goals, I think overall the first half performance was much more dynamic. They were much more creative and they were much more dangerous and in all phases of play, really. But then, they were able to break lines. They were able to get forward. They were able to, they weren't necessarily able to build out very gradually, like maybe Robert Rizzo likes. He likes that fluidity. But when they got on the ball, they were lethal. They were able to pick out any of the 4 attackers and they were able to kind of kickstart the offense. But in the second half, it kind of stagnated a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And then you also had Felicia Raw that came in with for Charlotte Bibot, which I believe it's her second game that we see, or maybe a few, I'm sorry. But yeah, it just felt like this kind of game where it's very, very hot. It's not the kind of game where you want to have Charlotte Bibot being really running that much because it's obviously it was very heavy on her. You maybe want to have somebody that, players that are a little bit more, maybe younger. I don't want to say younger, but maybe players that are a little bit more athletic that can kind of build up, right? It just felt like
was like 20, right? So I mean,
yeah,
that's what you got.
Yeah, so it was pretty much like you could tell that it was heavy on, and Bibot did an okay job. I did, and like you said, one of the most important things is always the dynamic, right, with your partner. And in the past few games, I haven't seen that click from the two, which I'm very surprised because at this point of the season, you would hope that they found kind of each other connected with each other, but I don't find that they have. Which leads me kind of to the next question, right? And I think you broke it down really well, where it was like a tale of 2 halves with the midfield, right? But it was a hot game, and usually they're the ones doing the most running. But there should, in this part, is where I think the coach maybe should have done some adjustments in the midfield. I mean, I did ask the coach, like, hey, like, did you make any adjustments because it was hot and all that? Like, was there anything that you maybe changed in the game? And he was like, no, not really. I didn't really, we just stick to what we know and stick with to what we did. And that's where I'm a little bit like, okay, so does this have to do with that they're missing that? And we can talk about that now. Is there a miss, like, is there big, I'm thinking of the French word in my head, but is there like a gap in the depth of the midfield when it comes to this, when it, like, do you think this midfield, like a game like yesterday, is it built for these kind of games where maybe they're down 2-0 and they can build up a comeback?
Look, I mean, the second the coach is hesitant about making any changes that are needed, then that answers your question. If your coach can go, oh, this player needs a sub, go without thinking twice, you have confidence in your group. And I think that's another reason that you bring in an international player who has experience on a high level, who has, and again, she's not 20 years old, she's 27 years old, she's in her prime. You bring someone in like that who, if you need to, if you're sticking with your 4-4-2 and you need to change, you go, Jim, get ready, you're going in. Or vice versa, right? She's starting and go, Charlotte, get in. I need you now for 30 minutes. So now Charlotte Bilbao does not have to play 90 minutes every single week, come hell or high water. There is that option now, especially if, she gets into the team and it clicks, right? Elias is in her prime, but Charlotte Bilbao is 35, right? I don't think that the expectation was for her to play 90 minutes every single week. Again, minus the injury, right? So that's just an unrealistic expectation. And having someone like that, I think, when you're starting a new league, you're starting a new team, you have expectations about maybe what you need. And maybe they were kind of surprised by the gulf in between the starters and the role players and the squad players. So they kind of maybe they didn't anticipate that correctly. It's very possible, but it's clear that he's maybe a bit hesitant to shift the midfield too much. And that kind of speaks to, maybe not having all the confidence in the world in your depth. And it's been proven, right? Because anybody that's come in for Charlotte Bilbao or Elias has not wowed. When you look at the depth in attack, when we talk about Claire Monnier, or the depth in defense, we talk about people like Schenk and Hill, who did not start the season but have now become irreplaceable, right? That's having confidence in your depth. But in the midfield, that has not been the case.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that it's a big miss there. It's and something probably that they'll learn to attack in the off season a little bit better is the gap. And then, like you said, the coach, like the way he's playing his hand, it seems like we gotta juice out whatever we can out of Charlotte Bilbao. It's a hot day, but at this point we need it. And that's where I'm a little bit like, there's going to be hot days, there's going to be cold days, but how well is RosesFC prepared to attack this problem that they're having right now? Clearly, this 27-year-old signing may be a sign of things to come. Maybe there'll be more, maybe we don't know, but for now, it's just not enough what they have in the midfield. I thought Elias had a better game. I did say in the past few weeks that I thought she had some poor games where her passing was a little bit off, but I felt like this game she played a little bit better. And hopefully she continues that form. But Bilbao does look like a player that's coming back from injury. She does look like it's a little bit heavy on her right now, and she needs help. She needs help, and she needs help quickly. So speaking of hesitancy, let's get to the attack of the RosesFC from last night, because I did ask Megan Sauvé yesterday. I asked her, hey, like, you've played the whole season. I didn't have the stats in front of me, but I'm pretty sure she started all the games this season for RosesFC as the captain. And I asked her, what have you liked so far from what you've seen from your team? And what do you want to see improve from now until the end of the season? And Megan told me, hey, like, I really like what we're doing. I like how we're passing the ball around. But what I want to see improve is that, yes, we continue passing, but we need to finish. We need to finish because we keep passing it. And she literally described it. We pass around the box, we go around, and then nobody finishes. So we need to finish. And she was very clear in that she wants to. And that's something that I think we saw yesterday. We saw a lot of, Tanya Boychuk, to me, in my opinion, had a very, very quiet game. And I believe she played all 90 minutes yesterday. She had an extremely quiet game. She struggled. Is it all her fault? Not necessarily. I don't think there was too many balls going her way, or she was being set up the right way. At least not the way she likes it. But Latifa Abdul had a rough game. She got subbed out. I think she tried some shots which were, you know, she almost scored, which would have been another banger. But beyond that, it seemed I think it's the first time I really see Latifa Abdul frustrated. She seemed mad that things just weren't going her way, and it's just obviously the heat plays a role in everybody. I know when it's really hot and I'm just not getting what I want, I get really mad, right? But yeah, she just seemed a little frustrated. What'd you think of the attack? And as a sub, we had Laurie Thibault. I didn't mention much of her, but Laurie Thibault, we had Paquin, right? We had Paquin come in as well. And yeah, by the way, Claire Monniard, I've said that she's been doing a fantastic job. I still think she did a fantastic job, but the way that RosesFC was attacking yesterday, the way they were playing that, I don't think they played that much of press defense until later in the game when they really needed to score, and they actually had a lot of success doing it. But Claire Monniard is not, I don't think she's the kind of player that doesn't play, like, capitalize on like high pressure. She does, you could tell that she was struggling a lot with the ball going, her chasing the ball a little bit more. But beyond that, what would you think with all the attacks and the subs that?
I'm not surprised. Abdul and Manyala were subbed out. Honestly, it was a lot of running. It was a lot more running than I think they've done. And again, the heat does play a factor. But I really like Manyala's game, especially in the first half. The second half, I think, you look at the second half that Toronto put together, where they basically just built a wall, and they said, "You can't play through this. I dare you to play through this," and they couldn't. And then, you take a look at some of the Halifax games, and you take a look at some of the other games, especially like 2 months ago when they were really struggling again, and they went like 5 games without a win. And you look at one of the common denominators of all those games, and it's just a very well organized block, right? And like you said, right, Megan Sauvé talked about it in the press and in the media availability after the game. If a team builds a low block, or a team builds a medium block in front of this Roses team, they have a very rough time breaking it down. And I think Claire Monniard is going to help a lot because Latifa Abdul is your player up top, is your striker, right? But Claire Monniard does drop a lot deeper. And she did a very good job of that in the first half when the game was open. She did a very good job of connecting the midfield and the attack, which is something we've begged them to be able to do more effectively. I think Noemi Paquin doesn't have that same ability. And frankly, I think Claire Monniard helped link up Megan Sauvé. She helped integrate Megan Sauvé into the game a lot more because she consistently found her, especially with, Hayley Whitaker not being at the, not being at her best. So I think that all the pieces are there, but it's the same problems. Again, it's the same problems. And I think the book is out where teams are going to be coming into Montreal, or teams that, that need a result, and they'll say, we're going to make this extremely difficult. We're going to make it a war of attrition. We're going to make this game slow. We're going to make you guys work for every single blade of grass, and no one's going to have fun. And we're going to dare you to play through us. And it won't work because, that seems to be the one thing that the Roses can't really do effectively. They can press you into oblivion. They can play in an open field. They can hit up back on the counter. They can build their own low block if they need to. They've done it a bunch of times where they've had to, keep a lead. They've done it effectively. But the one thing they seem to consistently struggle with is breaking down mid to low blocks of other teams. And so look for that to be the case with a lot of the teams that show up until they figure it out. Look for that to be the case for the formations of a lot of different teams for the last half dozen games of the season, because I think it's going to become a lot more common.
Yeah, and the coach of Toronto actually told us in the post game, Mr. Mario Milanovic had told us, he was like, at the end of the game, I just went for a back five of low block, and really, he said, I just decided to give possession to Montreal. That's what they did. He's like,
I dare you to break me down, and you can't. That's exactly the attitude that Halifax had, and that's why Halifax is the only team that hasn't lost to Montreal yet this season.
Yeah, and it's
it's
again,
not a coincidence.
It comes with like maybe being a little bit more unpredictable, being a little bit more creative, maybe piling up more on the box. It doesn't matter, but it really felt ineffective. Elias, Megan Sauvé is co-captain of this team. On a day like yesterday, do you feel, because clearly the team was frustrated? It's the first time, again, like I said, in the season that I've actually seen some of them actually kind of bickering with each other. Again, the heat is a huge factor for anybody, right? Do you think Megan Sauvé is that kind of captain you want in your team? Because you don't see her kind of barking out commands in the field. She's not really communicating. She's kind of on her own bubble, doing her own thing. Do you think someone like her, or maybe someone like Lucy Capadonna, that is very vocal and is very consistent in her performances day by game, would be a better captain for when a team is losing like they were yesterday and they need a comeback?
I think that really depends to what kind of leader you're looking for, because Megan Sauvé she's not as vocal, but she leads by example, right? I think I did the math because you mentioned it earlier, but she's missed exactly 45 minutes all season. Everything else is just full 90s, right? She's a workhorse. She leads by example. She's an exemplary professional. And I really do think that, that's all the characteristics you need in a captain. And someone that's not vocal doesn't necessarily make you a bad captain. I think Lucy Capadonna has also become a leader in this team, right? She's super young, but she's become a leader in this group. And I think that's because of how solid and how vocal she is. But that doesn't mean you have to be, you need multiple leaders and multiple different kinds of leaders on the team. So Megan Sauvé does her own thing, and she does her own thing very well as far as player connection and as a leader. And Lucy Capadonna is a different style, right? You look on the men's side, right? Joel Waterman and Samuel Piet, who are the co-captain, who are the two main leaders on the field on their team, are very different styles of leaders too. Samuel Piet leads by example. Samuel Piet is a workhorse. Samuel Piet would play every single minute if he physically could. And Joel Waterman is the loud, the communicative, and the guy to kind of maybe rally the troops a little bit. But the parallels are there for a reason, because you need both kinds of leaders. I think Megan Sauvé has done a very good job as captain. I think that you watch her play and you see that she makes everyone around her not just better but work harder. So when you're down, I think that's also a very important characteristic. When you're starting to bicker, when you're starting, you've tried the same thing 4 or 5 times and they've stopped you every single time, and you're starting to get frustrated, you're getting a little bit lazy, or this, that, and the other. Having someone like Megan Sauvé there, whose resolve just does not break, is also in and of itself super important. And I'm happy that they've managed to strike a pretty healthy balance between the two. I don't think the captain's armband itself should change, because I think that just invites unnecessary drama. But, someone like Lucy Capadonna and the other vocal voices on the field definitely need to kind of step up when games like this are difficult and frustrating. And I think that, honestly, you mix everything together and it's going to be a super healthy leadership group.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm wording it wrong, and that's on me, because you're absolutely right. There's just different styles of captain, and but on a game like yesterday, wouldn't you want someone like a captain? Okay, maybe I'm using the word captain loosely here, but wouldn't you want a leader that can say, you know what, I'm going to grab the soccer ball and we're going to win this. I'm going to take it upon myself. You guys are in it with me or you're not. Because yesterday it didn't feel like any. And I mentioned Lucy Capadonna because, especially towards the end of the game, it felt like at a lot of times she actually was like, okay, I have this much space, I'm just going to go up with the ball. She did some really fancy stuff with her feet as well. She really took action, said, I'm going to take care of this. And again, not necessarily focusing on Megan Sauvé, just in general, are RosesFC missing that playmaker, that player that is, can really say, I'm going to take charge of this and we're going to win this game together and you guys can follow me?
I mean, Latifa Abdou is that player, right? When she's off the field, there's a noticeable drop off in just pure danger. I'm not talking about individual quality. I'm just talking about a pure, 5-alarm fire for the defense, all hands on deck. Latif Abdou provides a level of focus from opposing defenses that no other player can replicate because she's that good, because she's that efficient, because she can score in that many different ways. She can score. She's clinical and close. She can hit from distance. She could dribble one or two players and then finish. She can score any way you ask her to, right? Tanya Boychuk is another player who is like that though. Tanya Boychuk just doesn't get on the ball enough when you're a winger, especially yesterday. She wasn't.
She was nowhere.
She wasn't consistently dangerous enough, right? She had her moments where she had a look or she had a dribble and she found some space, but if we're talking about consistent danger to occupy a defender's attention, right, where like no matter where she is in the field, there's a defender on her, kind of like Latif Abdou, that wasn't the case. They managed her very well. They managed everybody very well in the second half.
Yeah.
But I think more so your focus just relies on, providing danger around Latif Abdou. I think that is a little bit tricky, but it's definitely a reasonable request to have more danger.
Yeah, and that's what I have the problem with is you have, Paquin and Thibault that came in and they were little to no impactful, and Roy too in that sense where they weren't game changers. It wasn't like they came in and they're in, now we really have a shot. No, it really was they came and they did their job and that was it, but it didn't change the game in any way. And I think that's what the Roses FC are missing now, at least that's in my opinion. We talked about the midfield. Do you think the Roses FC have relied a little bit too much on Latif Abdou's maybe like magical moments where she scores those like incredible shots, and on days like yesterday, which we mentioned several times, she was just off, wasn't really her game, she was frustrated?
Numbers wise, maybe not in pure scoring numbers, but in terms of just like general attacking output and general attacking who gets the ball the most and who is relied on the most, probably, yeah. I think they rely a little bit. But that's the case with any team that has a significant, like a clear best player or clear currently, most informed player. Is they're going to get the ball more. They're going to get a lot more responsibility. They're going to get looked to create that kind of that kind of danger. So yeah, I'm not too surprised. Again, if you can get a second Latif Abdou, yeah, that's incredible. But they don't grow. They're they don't do. You can't just go to the corner and get yourself another Latif Abdou. There's a reason why she's one of the best players in the NSL. So I think that what they have to do is kind of recreate that danger in other areas of the pitch. But that falls down to the coaching now. That's up to the coaches because they have the tools for it. You just gotta organize it the right way.
You know who I want to see Roses FC get? Esther Okoronkwo from Toronto, AFC Toronto, because
that would be an interesting
she is an impressive. I know we're talking about Roses FC, but you just observe the way Okoronkwo does her game, and it's the second time I see her because I saw her the first time around she was here. She is literally that player we're talking about, where she can be like, I want to score, let's build this offense, either around me or around me. She left the game early. I think she had a pulled hamstring. I'm not sure. But when she's in the game, she is impactful. She is an impact player. So if Rose FC, she is very, very impressive. At 28 years old, in her prime, Toronto had a huge signing with her. All right. So I think that does it for Rose FC. I mean, we're it's the kind of mid-season, doing that late season run. Definitely hope that they can maybe get a few victories coming up because they lie in second place, and I think it's something that they took personal. It sounded that way at least yesterday in a press conference where they said that they really did want to have that first place. But we're gonna go ahead and turn to our second subject of the day. But as always, before we move on to CF Montreal, just a quick reminder that if you listen to the show and like what you see from us, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to subscribe to all of our social media platforms, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you're at. Make sure to sign up. It helps us out, guys. Spread the word so let your friends know there's an English podcast that talks about CF Montreal, Roses FC, Canada Soccer. And thank you so much for those of you that are with us tonight. Make sure to ask your questions. We're moving on to the next topic, CF Montreal. Before we get into the actual game of last night, there were a few important things that happened throughout the week. CF Montreal legendary defender and now director of communications for the team, Hassoun Camara, was enshrined to the CF Montreal Wall of Fame last night. And it's a beautiful drawing that you showed there. It was actually
awesome graphic.
It's an awesome graphic that was done by some person in CF Montreal. What a moment! I got to talk to Hassoun before the game, and I asked him, "Hey, Hassoun, how are you feeling?" I asked him, "Are you nervous? About tonight, the presentation?" He was like, he looked at me. He was like, "Andy, I'm as nervous as I was when I was a player." He's like, I'm as nervous as I am as going in the field. No, fantastic moment. He was clearly very emotional, very excited, well deserved, very well deserved, long overdue. What'd you think? What'd you think, Elias?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those people that made the one of the very few players that made the transition from NASL to MLS in 2012, and he was a massively important part of that team, not just from a footballing perspective, from a cultural perspective. He was one of the players, or he's one of the rare players that came from overseas into the club and immediately understood what it means to play for Montreal Impact. And for that, I think it's why he's a fan favorite. I think it's why he'll forever be a fan favorite. I think it's why he's so he's so closely ingrained with the culture and the history of the club in its early years of MLS. And it's why he's mentioned in the same sentences as Marco Di Vaio and Nacho Piatti and Patrice Bernier and Gillier. Like, he's mentioned in those sentences, right, as some of these all-time club greats. It's because he not only was that good and he was that effective in his position, but it's because he understood the culture of Quebec soccer, especially in its infancy. 15 years ago, it's not the same level of cultural significance as it is today. It was much more niche, and it was still growing. And to kind of capture, to understand that coming from, all these big clubs that he's played at is so important. It's why so many people appreciate him, and it's why I appreciated him as a player, and it's why I still appreciate him as someone that I interact with now constantly as a member of the media department. Right, he still understands what this club means, and he's doing a bang up job. So yeah, I'm super happy that he got a recognition. And I can't wait to see who they bring up next.
Yeah, honestly, like I think you said it all right. Just a legend, knows how the club works, knows how the team, and they had a fantastic video showing. If you were at Stats Saputo last night, there was a fantastic video of some of the greats also like giving him a shout out, and throwing beautiful words his way, much deserved. But then at the end of the night, it was time for him to come to his current job, which is, I know Elias is laughing because we were both in the same place, right? And he goes from one moment being clapped by everyone in the stadium, well deserved, to doing his day job, right? Which was
at the million people are yelling at him. Where's my interview?
What? No, it wasn't that crazy, but there seems to have been a miscommunication.
Journalists are big babies, myself included.
Yeah, you are, Elias. You know what? No. I mean, whatever. Not gonna get into it, but yes, they're demanding, and it's a collaboration with the team and the journalists because everybody's done. So there seemed to have been a miscommunication. One of the players came a little bit later, but what I really love.
The thing is, and the cool thing about having a player as who's in charge of the media department is he understands. He's already had a relationship with the media. He understands what the Montreal media is like, and he's a cool guy to be around. So,
and that's what I meant. Like the when I got to talk to him as well, he's just been such a respectful human being. I'm not even talking about the fact that he's a former player or how much he's appreciated. He's just been a very, very human, fantastic human to talk to, and I have a lot of respect for him. All right, so before we get into a game, we did have a question from Normand.
Two questions
that will attack a little bit. We had two questions, yes, you're right, but we're just gonna kind of blend it into one, right? Because it's a big topic. So Normand asked us, "Are you guys okay with the team not signing anyone of importance?" Okay, well, anyone of importance during this window depends how you see it. I mean, I hate to say yes or no in this answer because it's we're still in it, and things are happening. I will say this: the team did announce that there are 2 days off. The team is off for the next 2 days. I think that probably the players might not be practicing, but there's going to be a lot of work going on in the offices because they can kind of settle down now since they have a longer week and not every 2 days a game. But yeah, I mean, is it? I'm definitely constantly checking my feed to see if there's any new signings, any rumors, or anything. But it's true, there hasn't been any announcements. How do you feel about that, Elias?
I mean, yeah, Thomas Gillier and Efrain Morales are not necessarily like big names. The last 2 games they've done quite well, and I think anyone should be impressed with the performances they've put in. But yeah, I don't think that's what people meant when like, okay, we're rebuilding and we're looking to be competitive now, which is fair. But honestly, yeah, I'm okay with it now, but does not mean I'm okay with it with this. If this is the window, then you should just waited for the letter at the end of the season, because this feels like a very regular window where I didn't think there would like if I had just looked at the window from an outside perspective with no knowledge of the letter, I would not have believed that a letter was put out, right?
Yeah.
So unless there are announcements made, within the next 11 days.
Yeah, I think
kind of just a window.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think that's I know that Luca Petrasso is going to meet with the media before this window, this transfer window's over. What did I say?
Petrasso.
Jesus. Oh
I mean, he may meet with the media too, right? There are media availabilities every week.
It's the heat, man. I'm so Luca Petrasso will meet to talk about the transfer now. Oh boy, Lucas Saputo is going to definitely meet with the. Thank you. He kind of slipped it at me too. He's a Saputo, but yeah, he's definitely going to meet the media before the transfer window's closed. And like you said, more to defend, more to make this a pleasant press conference. They're better off signing at least one important person. Now, there's been rumors of them reaching out and actually questioning, seeing like what how realistic is this for us, for certain players. I mean, it's good, but not. We said it in the show. We've answered it in the past 3 weeks, right? Elias, since the letter came out, we said we will literally dissect every signing from now on because of the letter. We will. It just the way the expectations that they set on themselves, which we're holding them accountable, and we have every reason to. But yeah,
it kind of bleeds into a question we got from David, right? Like, do you think they'll be able to match the expectations from when they put out that letter?
I think they will, but I mean, to me, at the same time, what are the expectations? That's
the problem. The longer you wait to do anything this window, the higher the anticipation is going to get, right? So if I'm a CF Montreal fan, I mean, I am, but like if I'm a member of the fan base, right, and I see this letter, I'm like, oh, okay, so something may be happening. Okay, very interesting. And I'm watching my feed, and like this is after I'm well aware that Efrain Morales and Thomas Gillier are here, but I'm watching my feed. No, they're not signing anymore. Okay, there's 20 days left. I'll sign 19 days left. No. Okay, 11 days left. So I'm like, some shit better happen real quick.
Yeah.
Or else, why did you get my hopes up?
Yeah.
Because they could have, again, I just said this, they could have not put out a letter, done this window, and nobody would, and put that letter out at the end of the season, and maybe they would have been better off. But unless they make at least a big announcement, and one of the big announcements I need, if you're very serious about this rebuild, again, if you're not going to sign designated players or what have you, right? Like Patrick earlier today mentioned that he wants a designated player in a box-to-box capacity. Yeah, I love that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get one this year because the European season is already starting, and I don't think MLS teams are going to part ways with a DP level box-to-box player mid-season. So maybe we'll be looking at one in the off season. But the one thing I need absolutely is a commitment. Yeah, thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah. But the one thing I absolutely need is a commitment to MLS Next Pro. That is If you are serious about this rebuild and become a competitive team while also sticking to your philosophy of developing young talent, especially local young talent, because Quebec remains one of the biggest untapped reservoirs of talent in not just North America, but like in the world. It's an untapped reservoir. There is so much incredible talent here, and you can point out Nathan Saliba or Mathieu Chouanière or J'entends Sirois who could be on his way out. As players that you've managed to develop, Ismail Kone, obviously, as players you've managed to develop and get to the next level and sell off, but that's like 4, right? Yeah, it's 4 in the last 3 years. I get that, but think about all the high quality players that ended up fizzling out when they had the potential to be at least decent MLS players. I'm talking about Sean Rea. I'm talking about, we don't know what's going to happen with Alessandro Biello, but there's not a whole lot of movement. I'm talking about Jean-Aniel Assi, who was one of the most promising forwards to come out of the academy in a long time. Right? Players like that who either had to sit and wait on the bench or get loaned out. And they may even do well in their loan spell. Sean Rea won under 21 Canadian Player of the Year at the CPL. But they come back to MLS and they're not ready for the level, or they're not ready, or they don't even come back. If you have an MLS Next Pro team, all these players don't have to get loaned out. They stay in your system. You can keep an eye on them. And not only do you keep an eye on them, you can actively influence their development while they still play at a professional level. And you don't have that. Your development path is all wonky because they either are good enough to jump from, U19 into MLS, which nobody is, or you loan them out and then you kind of go, I hope you do well enough to develop, and then you come back a fully formed player, which is just kind of crazy. So you need that hands-on experience, and that is only done through MLS Next Pro. And if that's not a commitment you're willing to make, then drop the developmental club, drop the club formateur thing altogether, because I don't believe you. I don't believe you anymore.
What if they make no signings this window? No signings, but they announce the MLS Next Pro. Does that make up?
Good window.
Good enough for you?
I'm dead serious. If you commit to fully funding the MLS Next Pro team and you're not going to bail out in a couple of years, this is a real thing that's going to happen into perpetuity, then you could sign nobody else. I'm okay with it. The season's already gone anyway. But this is a commitment. This is a commitment that the club is making, not only a financial investment, but a footballing investment in its future. I'm completely okay with that. You could sign nobody else and just do that, and that's a win. I'm happy for the rest of the season.
I agree with you, but I wouldn't be happy if there's no signings. I'm not saying DP signings. I'm saying, okay, you're committing to the MLS Next Pro, but at least sign me 1 or 2 projects, because you can make it as like, with this new structure of the MLS Next Pro and these projects and these academy kids, this is where we want our projects to be at when they're signed with the team, and that's why we're doing the MLS Next Pro move. So that would be satisfying. I think we're too used to having these windows where they sign players, and these players some have ended up well and some haven't, and maybe that's part of that rebuild where they say, guys, by the way, when we talk about a rebuild, we're talking about building from the very, very bottom of the club, very, very bottom, which includes, as you mentioned, an MLS Next Pro team. This will be very, very important, because this is part of the building structure of the overall picture. Because if you sent out a letter, Elias, that says we're rebuilding, but then you do the same thing that you've done in past seasons where you just sign, old players that are being given a second or third chance of a club, or, like castaways from other clubs, then you haven't changed anything. You're just doing the same thing. You just put out a letter instead and said we messed up the first time around we did it. So it's going to be a very important one to watch. How many days are there left now? 9?
11.
11? Whoa.
Yeah, it's
the 21st.
Yeah, it's like the third week in August. I think it's done.
Damn, I'll be on vacation. I guess. Oh yeah, that's gonna drive me crazy. But all right. So speaking of crazy, let's talk about last night's game. CF Montreal drew versus Atlanta United 1-1. Again, in a very hot game. Atlanta United needed a win, but so did CF Montreal. Both teams are very, very low in their standings. And when I spoke on our edition of Op Watch this week, with Henry, he told me that Atlanta was desperate for this one, right? They're desperate because they've spent a lot of money on players, and the players haven't. I still couldn't believe I was watching Miguel Almiron back in the MLS, and Latelat had a. We're not talking about Atlanta here, but there was a miss that Latelat had a one-on-ones versus. Yeah. It wasn't a block. It was a miss, a 1v1 with the goalie that I can expect from any, say, up-and-coming MLS player, but not Latelata. Is he a DP? I'm not even sure, because
he's a designated player.
You can't do that. I'm sorry, you cannot do that as a designated player of your stature with that much money. So, anyways, we're going to get into the analyzing of CF Montreal. So, let's put up the lineup from last night. We, at goalie, we had Thomas Gillier. In the back line, we had Fernando Alvarez and Efrain Morales. On the left side, we had Luca Petras. On the right side, David Bugay. In the midfield, we had Brandon Craig with Victor Latori. On the right side, we had Henadi Sinchuk. On the attack, Caden Clark, along with Dante Seeley, and Prince Owusu on the top. So let's, as we did just like with RosesFC, what were your impressions of the defense and the goalkeeping, including the subs? In defense, I believe they changed both of them. If I'm not both left back and right back, or am I? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, look again. Marco Donadel asks for an insane amount of running from his fullbacks. I was not surprised at all to see them both substituted out. But yeah, honestly, guy, what a game! Whoa. What a solid game. He's become, ever since the switch to 4-back, and it turns into he was able to not be a right-sided center back in the back three or a right wing back. No, he is a right back in every sense of the word. He's become one of the most consistent players in the team. And again, he was so solid. I love his game. Luca Petrasso had a quieter game, but again, he wasn't actively a liability, right? He had a good game. He was a solid game. He had Miguel Almiron on his side, which is never an easy task, and he was able to keep him quiet as well, which is, again, it's all you could ask for Luca Petrasso, marking very tightly someone like Miguel Almiron. And in the middle, Morales and Alvarez, I think they did a good game. Again, Alvarez is a bit touch and go. It's a bit shaky, but I think he's at least kind of stabilized, right? He's definitely stepped his game up from the very difficult moments he had when he would play half an hour every 2 weeks and showed that he just wasn't getting any minutes. Now he's kind of stabilized a little bit, but I agree with Patrick a lot here. The drop off when it was Bugay and Pierce, if I'm not mistaken, that came on the subs as left and right back. The drop off was big. The drop off is huge, and it just reinforces the fact that they need proper rotation in left back and right back. They need some proper replacements because Alexander Guboglu is a winger. Any way you slice it, maybe he could play wing back, maybe, but he is a winger. And Tom Pierce just does not have the legs or the defensive acumen of Luca Petrasso. And yeah, he's got that left foot, which is a fantastic left foot. He's got one of the best deliveries on the team, but that a left back does not make. You need a much more balanced game, especially for a Marco Donadel fullback who on the left side who does essentially corner flag to corner flag, and Tom Pierce just can't provide that. So yeah, Patrick, I 100% agree. The drop off is massive. And Thomas Gillier, I love Thomas Gillier. Thomas Gillier is so much fun to watch. I don't think I've seen a goalkeeper this fun to watch. Just to watch him make saves is more entertaining than any goalkeeper I've seen live in MLS in a long time. And yeah, the energy is palpable.
You think he's the keeper going forward?
Yes. Yeah, 100% I do.
Well, what about Sirois? Like, what are you going to do? You bench him? You loan him? What are you going to do? Well, he didn't do anything wrong.
No, he didn't do anything wrong. But when a better player comes along, that is the definition of competition. If a player comes along that is doing better, that is, has more energy, that is, more trustworthy with the ball at his feet, right? Thomas Gillier has done everything you would ask of him, and taking him out of the goal right now defies all logic. Jonathan Sirois has not been bad by any stretch of the imagination. He's been solid. He's been reliable. But Thomas Gillier looks like $1 million. And when you look at the 2 games that he's played, he stops a penalty, stopping 1v1s, double saves, any kind of shot stopping you ask from. On top of that, he's okay with the ball at his feet. I'm not going to say he's fantastic.
He
but
had some.
He there's some moments where you're going, what are you doing? What are you aiming at? But he's solid. I don't think you could bring up a single argument as to why Thomas Gillier should not be in nets next week against DC United.
But what about Jonathan Sirois? I still want, like, what has he done? It feels like a James Patemis situation again, where he.
But the difference is Patemis got hurt, and Sirois kind of stepped in and became fantastic.
But he was very good though. He wasn't bad.
I mean, Jonathan Sirois was one of the best shot stoppers in MLS when James Patemis was injured. Right, one of, if not the best shot stopper. He was like 3rd in clean sheets. Right, so on a team that missed the playoffs. Right, so. Yeah, he was excellent, but the nature of football is the best player starts, especially if you have rumors linking you away. And this guy just got here, and he's got an option till the end. He's got a loan contract until the end of the season. He's got an option for 2026. So if he's your guy for next year too, and you're expecting Jonathan Sirois to take off for Europe soon, then it's even more so. Then his spot is even more solidified. But if they're both staying, what right now has Thomas Gillier done to deserve not to start? He's done absolutely nothing. He's done every single thing right.
Yeah.
In my eyes, he's the starter on Saturday.
I mean, look, I see it because he's a product of this club and he's linked to Bologna, which always gives you not only higher expectations as a player, but also I think priority for the development. That's my opinion. How Patrick White asked, how tall is he? I saw here he's 186.
He's 6'1".
Yeah, he's a big boy.
He's not tall, but he's the same height as Jonathan Sirois.
Yeah, but I mean,
was like 6'1".
He somehow, I don't know how he does it, but he seems to like know how to use his body well. So yeah. So, but he's also very, very. He's also very vocal, right? He's very vocal, and you can tell he's very like vocal with his colleagues. Something that at times we saw that Jonathan Sirois maybe needed a little bit more. He was even asked in a few press conferences, like, "Hey, like, what are you working on?" And they told him since the Laurent Courtois days or Hernan Losada, where he said, I have to work on my communication, on being more confident on net and being able to direct my colleagues. While, again, Thomas Gillier comes in like as a fire rocket, really like, you know, not afraid to talk, not afraid to tell people things and all that, tell players things. But yeah, my impressions were that, as you mentioned, I think David Bugay had a fantastic game. But beyond that, it's the first time I really saw him yesterday where he actually interacted a lot with the crowd, where he was trying to get them pumped up, and which is a little thing, but it shows that he's starting to feel comfortable. He's starting to feel very comfortable with the team, and he's starting to feel comfortable with himself. He's going above and beyond, and again, interacting with the crowd, trying to get them pumped up. I think he had a fantastic game. He was also subbed off because it was a freaking hot day, so I'm sure he did a lot of running. Luca Petrasso, we've said in this pod before, he's the kind of left back that does his job, and he does it well. The only problem I have with Luca Petrasso, this time I'm choosing the right Luca, is that whenever his matchups is from an elite left back, and I'm sorry, but Miguel Almiron, he's not at his highest right now, in my opinion, but he's still elite. He's still, I think, elite. I mean, he plays at a different level. And that's where sometimes with Luca Petrasso, and I'm sure other left backs struggle with him too, but this is where Luca Petrasso seems to kind of doubt himself and sometimes gets caught off. And the teams see that. Teams see that Luca Petrasso struggles, so they'll continually attack his side. And because David Bugay is more, he's very, he shuts down his side. And Luca Petrasso is a little, I've seen at times that he seems to respect too much his opponent and gives him space. And the crosses come from that right side, from where Luca Petrasso's side. So I don't know if I don't know what the solution is there, Elias, because you mentioned about that, maybe signing some backups, maybe somebody to compete, maybe a more like very defensive minded left back, which I don't know when was the last time we had a defensive-minded left back, Elias, because since the past 5 years, we've only been signing wing backs. It's hard to think of the last time we had Bakary Sagna, but he was a right back. But a defensive-minded left back, was that Daniel Lovitz, as a left back?
I mean, Yuka Raitala was a center back, but he played left back a little bit.
It's
Joaquin Sosa?
No, get the fuck out.
No. Was a left-sided center back who played left wing back a little bit.
Nah.
I mean, I'm kind of making your point, but like, it's been a while.
It's been a while that you need a pure defensive left back, right? Because you can tell that Luca Petrasso would be excellent for that Dante Sealy position when Sinchuk is above him, where he's kind of the midfield, where he does a little bit defensive, a little bit offensive. He kind of transitions the side, but he will need a pure defensive left back to back him up. That's how I see Luca Petrasso. Fernando Alvarez, I think he did his job, wasn't the best, but I think the moment Jalen Neal comes back or Joel Waterman comes back,
it was gone.
He's gone, Elias, because he does nothing that is above and beyond. And that's when we're talking about projects, which, to be very fair, he was considered a project when he signed with this club. He hasn't done anything, and he's done his job, and that's great. But maybe he needs to go to another MLS team where he'll do his job. I don't know. But if he wants to continue being labeled a project, then he needs to go above and beyond in the few performances he goes. Because right now, Marco Donadao, I think he mentions it. We should do like a remix of all the times that he makes in his press conference. He mentions the word emergency. This is an emergency situation, right? With the center backs. So whenever we're not in emergency anymore, I think the first one to pay there is going to be Fernando Alvarez. Efrain Morales, you would have thought he'd maybe play a little bit more because he was playing against his former team, but I don't know. What'd you think of his? Like, I know you mentioned it a little bit, but he's exciting. I mean, he's an exciting project I definitely want to see more of. Is he good enough to bench Joel Waterman?
No.
Or Fernando Alvarez?
Fernando Alvarez, yes. Joe Waterman, no.
So you would have, and when Jalen Neal,
it's a different kind of player. You know, it's a different profile.
Yeah,
he's more of the George Campbell profile.
Yeah, but that's it. So
he's
I don't know
the Jalen Neal, Joe Waterman profile, right?
So I don't know.
If you want to have like a big, physically imposing bruiser next to a more composed ball playing center back like Jalen Neal or Joe Waterman, then yeah, he's the best one you got. But right now, I think center back 1 and center back 2 are Joe Waterman and Jalen Neal, in no particular order. But I think those are the two.
I think in a magical world where they're all healthy, everybody's healthy. Samuel Pietz is at 100%. I think he benches Joel Waterman, but not at the center back position. I think Joel Waterman's going to be considered a backup in midfield to Samuel Pietz. That's how I think I see him, assuming that he's still with the club. We're going to move on to midfield. We're going to move on to midfield.
I got a comment really quickly. We haven't won a match with him. I'm guessing him, Thomas Gillier, in nets. Yes. Robbie, they've won 6 games all year. Or 5 games in regulation all year or something.
Robbie, you said it yourself. Lower your expectations.
Nobody's won many games with the goalie has nothing to do with this. But yeah, I mean, look, you look at the 2 games that Thomas Gillier played, you can't say that he didn't give them every chance to win both those games. Yeah. So, I mean, red card in the first one, stopped the penalty. The second game, he made 8 saves, 9 saves.
It was incredible.
He was excellent. So, yeah.
He's dynamic, and I didn't say what I thought about, but Thomas Gillier, I think he did a fantastic job. I love the fact that he actually speaks French as a second language. I think it's important because how do you become a fan favorite? How do you become a fan favorite in this city? You speak the language, you communicate, the people can relate to you, right? And that's something that he's doing really well. He spoke, he won the game of the player of the match yesterday and was able to give a few words to the fans in French at the stadium. But yeah, overall, just a fantastic. I think 2 games that we've had from him so far. Yeah, I was watching the goalies warm up before the game, Elias, when we were in the press box, and I was like, I think Tomas Gillier is starting just based on body language of warming up because Jonathan Sirois seemed a little bit like, just gonna do these stretches here for fun. And I was like, if he's starting, then I hope the stretches start soon. But then, sure enough, the lineup dropped and he wasn't starting. But it's gonna be a lot of questions. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to midfield. We had where we had Victor Latori and Craig. Now I want to make this one quick, okay? Because we had Latori and Craig, but then Bryce Duke came in. Okay, now I don't want to go too in depth into everything, but do you think I almost feel like Marco Denadel, why did he pick Latori and Craig? Would you have wanted to see maybe Bryce Duke and Latori to start the game? Because Bryce Duke has played midfield in the past, and he's done a decent job at it. What do you think?
Brendan Craig has been very solid, very reliable, both in midfield and in center back and central defense over the last couple weeks. So honestly, I don't see why he would have been displaced. Victor Latori, we talked about it last week. It felt like maybe the minutes were getting on top of him a little bit. His performance dipped. Then he just goes and drops one of his best games of the year. He was my man of the match. I know Thomas Gillier won man of the match and he wouldn't have made it, but Victor Latori was my man of the match by a mile. He was fantastic. And honestly, this Victor Latori, I gotta watch what I say. But this Victor Latori very well could bench Samuel Piet. Games like this,
I think you froze up, Elias.
Games like this, he could bench Samuel Piet.
Yes.
If you don't want both of them on the field at the same time, he was phenomenal. Bryce Duke was a surprise. I really liked the way Bryce Duke played. And again, I've talked about this at length. Bryce Duke in a position where he does not have to be decisive is infinitely better than Bryce Duke put in a position where he has to assist and score goals and provide the final touch. Bryce Duke with no pressure and no offensive expectations, who can just float, can keep the ball moving and break lines and just establish rhythm, is the best version of Bryce Duke. Not to say that he's going to be a starter going forward or starter at any point, but games like this are where you demonstrate your value. And I think having him, and again, we saw him with him and Nathan Saliba together when they played a double pivot. It was the best version of Bryce Duke, right? The other best version of Bryce Duke was when he played in a trio with Caden Clark and Joseph Martinez. They were decisive. He did not have to be decisive. All he had to focus was just being creative and doing his thing. The best Bryce Duke is one that is kind of unencumbered with statistics. And yeah, I really liked his 45 minutes. I think he was good. I think he was composed on the ball. I think that his work rate was better than what was expected. And yeah, I think that he's at this point, he's trying to make a case as to why he should be here again next year. And I think games like this and performances like that prove that, while not a starter, he has value and he has a role that he can play in the team.
Yeah. And I've been very critical of Bryce Duke in this show. I agree with you, but the reason why I ask is because I really, like you said, he gave some very important minutes when they subbed him in. I forgot and how many minutes he got us. He got
45.
not 45. The halftime they subbed him in.
He came on a half. Yeah, he came on a half.
Yeah. And I think it was he had a great half because he was very involved defensively. Then when you see him as a 10, he seemed to be very and spread the ball really well. And I mean, Brandon Craig does a decent job being a defensive midfielder, but not like what we saw from Victor Latori. Because as you mentioned, Victor Latori had an outstanding performance. He was all over the field, and I say it as a defensive performance because I'm not really focused on his offensive performance. He seemed to be very good with the duels. I didn't even look at the statistics, but Bryce Duke and Victor Latori as a double pivot to me is a very interesting mix until they get someone to replace that can be better in that position than Bryce Duke, because I don't think that's Bryce. I don't think that's the best player to play that position for CF Montreal. But it should be very interesting what happens in the next few days and as hopefully some new signings are coming. Let's talk about the attack. Very, very interesting. Prince Owusu wore the captain's armband for the first time. Well deserved, by the way. And I think you asked him a question also in the press conference about being a captain and what that meant for him. But what were your thoughts on the attack with Hennady Sinchuk on the right? You had Caden Clark, and you also had Dante Seeley, right? And as a sub, we had Oger Escobar. We had Guboglu come in the 62nd, and and Kwado Opoku in the 92nd minute. What were your thoughts on that?
Wow, that was the most complete Dante Seeley performance I've seen all season. He was efficient. He was opportunistic. He tried stuff. He always tries stuff. Dante Seeley always tries stuff, but he was doing everything right. I honestly, Prince Owusu as captain, in hindsight, felt inevitable. And also his turn of form, right? Managed to turn his season around the way he did. Also, now in hindsight, feels inevitable. You see the way he carries himself and the way he speaks. And we talked about it at the beginning of the season, where it wasn't a quality thing; it was a confidence thing. And the second he got even a little bit self-assurance, he just started scoring goals for fun.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the best offensive season, goal scoring wise, I think, since like Nacho Piatti at this rate. Because it's like 13 in all competitions, I think, at this point. And he's not going to stop. He's still got 7 games, and if he has his way, he's going to play 90 minutes 7 times. So yeah, I think, what a blessing in disguise Prince Owusu was. He came in as, this is Giacomo Frioni's backup to. He is not only the workhorse on this team that we talked about, right? We talked about his work rate and how his defensive actions and stuff like that at the beginning of the season. And that was never in doubt. But to see it on the field and to see him, be so demanding, almost to a fault, right? When he doesn't get the ball, he's visibly upset. When the ball isn't right, he's always trying to make people better. And one thing is like, you see him complain a lot, but it's how it's received, right? People aren't going, "Oh, this motherfucker's complaining again." Okay, you did not like that. I will do better next time, right? He's being a leader, and I love it. We got to talk about Caden Clark. We got to talk about Caden Clark, man. How many times have we begged? I mean, at this point, I asked him in the press conference like last week, and he basically begged for it too. But to get this man on the ball in the final third, not just in build-up, not just have him play off the ball, get him on the ball in dangerous areas, and good things will happen. His best game of the year by a mile.
By far. Wow.
And he was effective. He was unselfish. Everything you could have asked him to do, he did it. And I loved every bit of it. I would have liked to see him shoot a bit more when he was given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. But, the way he helped cap off that team goal, the way that, he even set up Dante Seeley when he hit the post on that one too. Caden Clark was on the ball. It felt like last year's Caden Clark, finally, right? These last 2 weeks have felt like Caden Clark is finally regaining his, you remember the vibe around Caden Clark. He had a cloud over him 24/7. He was miserable, right? And it was plainly obvious. And versus this Caden Clark, who's enjoying himself, who's looking to get involved. I love every single second of it. So yeah, Caden Clark, chapeau, great game. And again, this is the kind of stuff you do to convince people that I'm here to stay and I deserve to be not just be here next year, but be in an important role next year.
Yeah. And look, I agree with everything you said. I'm not going to talk more about Prince Owusu. I think he's been fantastic. He deserves the captain's armband. I still believe that he has infuriating moments where he makes some passes or decisions where you're like, what are you doing? Or he doesn't take the shot, or he takes the shot. But at the end of the day, Elias, what counts is him scoring goals. And he is literally carrying this team on his back in this shit season that it's been for the 2025 campaign. He's been carrying this team on his own, staying healthy. I mean, what are we even talking about? He was supposed to get 1 game rest, and he was called to play 90 minutes because Giacomo Frioni got injured in warmups. I mean, and he scored in that game. He was dominant again. So, like, he is a very, very incredible player. I think he deserves it, and I hope he stays at CF Montreal. He's obviously put his stock up in a little bit, and I'm sure teams are watching, just like we're commenting. Teams are probably saying like, who is this guy, and why is he scoring at ease right now in MLS? But yeah. What scares me though is if he ever gets hurt. Knock on wood. I don't want him to get hurt. If there's ever any injury,
honestly, with his mentality, he probably just will himself to be healthy again. I feel like
he had said it yesterday, right?
His mentality is fantastic. He's got a wonderful mentality, and you know, every single time he's in the press conference, he's just so German, man. He's just like, yeah, I have to be good, so I'm good. I have to be healthy, so I'm healthy, and that's it. I was like, fuck yeah, all right, yeah, sure.
Let's go. Yeah, yesterday he made all of us in the press conference laugh. He was like, my mentality, I'm gonna rest when I die. I was like, what? That's amazing. That's freaking great. But it was anyways, the rest attack. Hennady Senchuk, I felt like he did a decent performance, but it also looked like he got tired in the heat. Like it was too much. So he got subbed out pretty early. Yeah. Yeah. But let's talk about Caden Clark. You mentioned it very well. Caden Clark, man. Again, I've mentioned it here. I've been critical of him because I felt at times. And you know what, Elias? I actually went back to the press conference, one of the first press conferences after Laurent Courtois got fired and Marco Donadel changed the shape. And they were kind of asking him, like, what's going on with you? Like, what position do you play? And he was like, and he seemed like you said a cloud over him where he said, I guess my position doesn't exist anymore in this tactics. He literally said that. He's like, I guess my position doesn't exist. I'm just wherever the coach needs. He looks so down while answering, and like, I guess I'm just trying to figure myself out again. He discovered his position. He's discovered it, where he belongs, what he needs to do in this formation. And you saw it clearly. He was involved in all over the pitch. And what surprised me the most, again, and you mentioned it, was his unselfish assist on that Sealy goal, because he could have gone that 1v1 and it was excellently timed. But no, he was just a great game, and I was surprised that they took him at the 92nd minute for Mahalo Poku. Maybe they, Donadel wanted to give him a chance to get a clap, get the ovation in the stadium because he deserved it. He hustled. But yeah, Dante Sealy had a very Dante Sealy game. I'm not gonna say more than that. I think he can be up and down times. He did. I think the goal that he scored was fantastic, but it was just a 1v1, right? So he should be scoring these goals.
Yeah, but I mean, with Dante Sealy this season, that also could have ended up in Rosed. You don't know.
Yeah, that's why you gotta clap it up when it happens.
You gotta give him credit when he actually does his job. But it was very well could have also ended up hitting one of the lights.
But now I think we broke it down position, but this was still a tie. And I asked a question yesterday, Elias, to both Victor Latour and Prince Owusu, and I was like, look, at the end of the game, a lot of players went down. And Marco Donadel said in the second half, most of the players just forgot to play, and they were all focusing on the result. They all wanted to get to the 3 points, and they kind of forgot that they still had to play to get the result. This didn't feel like the best tie, like at the ending. It really, I saw everybody, all the players just drop down on the floor after the game. And it wasn't that they were tired, but their heads were hanging. They were mad. Prince Owusu said, I was happy that I saw that. I was happy how mad they were about it, because this team has been getting too used to losing and making it a norm. What'd you think of that?
Oh, 100% agree. Look, Thomas Gillier also said it after the League's Cup game, after they lost to Puebla. You losing cannot be accepted, right? And dropping points cannot be accepted, especially when you're positioned to win. So yeah, you should be frustrated. That was not a winnable game. That was a game you should have won. It was a game that every single metric said you should have won. Right? They had 30% of the ball, and they had more chances than Atlanta did. They did everything right, and one mess up in a corner, and all of a sudden you go home empty-handed. You would have jumped up to 13 points. You would have been a point behind Toronto, and they would have had a game in hand, but still, you would have been a point behind Toronto. Or you've got two objectives this year, right? You've got, don't finish last. You're no longer last. You're in 14th. Congratulations. And finish above Toronto, if you can. They're 3 points behind the Toronto. They're
That's
playing Toronto
a fan objective. Yeah.
No, that's a club objective too, right? When was the last time Toronto finished above Montreal? It's been a while, right? You don't want that streak to ever end, right? So if you can perpetuate that streak another year or two, or as long as you need to, don't let this be the year the streak ends.
Yeah.
So that's also a club objective. That's still a rivalry. So those are the two objectives. And you've got you have a very easy schedule for the rest of the season. You've played all the big hitters. You're playing teams that are around you in bad form. You need to start collecting wins. I want them. They're at 4 wins on the league right now. I want them to end with at least 6.
Yeah.
That's not ridiculous to ask. When you look at the people they're playing, when you look at let me find the people they're playing next that is an extremely ask them to win 2 games out of DC, Austin, TFC, St. Louis, Red Bulls, Charlotte, Nashville, and then you end with Cincinnati. Right? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams you're playing that are outside of a playoff spot. There should be no reason you don't win at least 2 of those games. There's no godly reason why you don't end up with at least 6 wins. And I know, wow, we're cheering for 6 wins, but that's the state of the situation. I like obviously a win in Toronto. That would be nice, but take what you can get. But of these games, ending the season with 6 or 7 wins is not just a possibility; it should be an expectation. Because a lot of these games are also at home.
Yeah, and I believe 5 of those games are at Stade Saputo, which is
exactly they're playing Red Bulls, who are out of a playoff spot. St. Louis is out of a playoff spot. Austin, who's 7th, I think, so they're in a playoff spot still, and DC United all out of a playoff spot. Then TFC, who's is on the road. But those are all games that you should back yourself to win.
Yeah, they need a big game against DC United. Has been plummeting this season. Terrible form. This is a must win. I'm not talking about let's make it a morale win. Let's make it a pat in the set. You guys did well. No, they need a win. They need a solid, convincing win. So big game. And after all the nice words yesterday in the press conference, the most important thing is a reaction. So we'll see how it goes. But that's it for tonight. We appreciate you guys having stuck around for the whole show. Thank you to everyone who joined us today, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. And follow my account as well as Elias' account on X, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere for daily updates. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week. And thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 236 of The Ball is Round.